very advanced.
Yeah, look, Malcolm Fraser was the Prime Minister in
Yes.
1978. They went to the election in 77 against the Whitlam government, offering a fistful of dollars, and those dollars never arrived.
No. Hey, look, the numbers are just staggering, aren't they? And we've been talking all morning about whether or not, I guess there's an appetite for paying it back at this point. But most people, most normal people go, well, hang on a second, if we're borrowing all this, we've got to pay it back at some point.
Yeah, you do. At some point in the future, it does have to be paid back. We're heading towards $1 trillion worth of debt. Now, I think the most extraordinary thing that we heard this morning was, Carl, when you asked the Prime Minister, when will you next post a surplus? And he said, well, there's not one scheduled or foreseeable in the next decade. That means that we're going to continue to rack up debt, according to this budget, over the course of the next decade. Well, interest rates are low at the moment. The government can borrow and have a lower debt servicing cost than it's had in the past. But one day, somebody's going to have to work out how to pay this back, and it won't be anyone who's in this government.
So he said it wasn't a philosophical change, which is wrong. He said it's a pandemic change. That was his spin on it. What did you make of that?
Look, I don't doubt the Prime Minister's sincerity. I've seen him in public and in private, and his biggest opposition has been the pandemic, and he has worked day and night to try and do something about this. But there has been a philosophical change. He talked about temporary spending. Yes, JobKeeper was temporary spending, but this is a permanent change to the size of government. So this spending on big welfare projects, and they're good ones, obviously, they're public goods, right? On aged care needed to be done, on the National Disability Insurance Service. By the way, that's going to cost more than Medicare in the next couple of years. We are buying a lifestyle that we can't afford. We are borrowing to do that. We can't do that forever. The government knows that. And if this had been a Labor Treasurer and a Labor Prime Minister, the questions that you put to the Prime Minister this morning were the questions he would have put to his opposition.
I think the thing that I sort of struggle to get my head around is we can all understand why they're spending big this budget, but why are we still saying that it's going to take a decade before we can get to a surplus again? What are they expecting to happen in the next 10 years?
Well, what they're expecting is the economy will grow, but unfortunately the cost of government will grow faster than the revenue that we get from that. So at some point in the future, some future treasurer is going to have to say, well, how do we deal with this? Well, how we've always dealt with it, which is we either cut the spending or we lift taxes or we do a combination of both. There is really no way around that. Look, in the near term, it's not a problem. You know, debt's never been cheaper. Everyone's pretty cool with it because look at what's happening in the property market. Everyone's borrowing and it's up to the eyeballs. But what happens, and everyone now knows this too, when interest rates actually do change, they're not going to have to rise very much for a lot of people in Australia to be in trouble and the government in future to be in some sort of trouble.
Look, he's relying on a lot of assumptions here and also he's relying on confidence. And the Treasurer's been at pains to point that out, to try and move towards a country that feels confident. Does that make a big difference?
Yeah, it does, and all of the indicators are we are feeling particularly confident. Look, governments in Australia can be very proud of the fact that Australia's been kept safe during this pandemic, that in fact that it's not a real issue, that the pandemic itself is not a real issue inside our borders, that we've had essentially 0 cases. The problem we've got for ourselves now is how do we get out of this? The rest of the world has this disease. This disease will continue to flow around the world. At some stage we do have to open up the borders. The government says not until the middle of next year, but then the disease is going to come to our population. You know, it has to be allowed to spread at some point after everyone's been vaccinated. I mean, what's the exit plan?
Do you reckon anyone really missed out last night?
Oh, look, future generations, I think your children, they're the ones who are going to be paying for this. And certainly if you work in tourism and travel, that industry has been poleaxed. It's getting $2.1 billion by way of compensation. Won't go anywhere near trying to fix the problem of having the international border shut until the middle of next year.
Yeah, I wonder what happened with that, because there was some speculation that they might get $800 million to help them out in a JobKeeper kind of relationship. But that never happened, never eventuated.
No, it didn't. Look, I am actually a little bit concerned that the Prime Minister has seen that state premiers have been rewarded by being very hard on state borders being closed, and that as we head towards the next election, that maybe keeping those borders closed for a little bit longer might be working in his favour. Now, he would say, of course, that's not the case. Well, we will wait and see.
Yeah. Early next year, hey?
Poor Ali, she's slumped. She's tired.
She's done
nowhere near the work you have, Chris.
Oh, dear.
When I went to bed last night, you were still on the TV, so...
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. I know. Carl told us he went to bed at 8:30. Good on you, Carl.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at least I didn't go
stay
to
up
sleep
for the
watching
budget
you.
special. He went to bed. Went to bed at 11 o'clock at night. People were glued to it.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
watch
still
it.
watching at 11, but
I'll watch it today when I go home. I'll get it on DVD.
you will not.
Play it on high rotation. It
Great
won't
job,
get
Chris. Great job, mate.
Take
Best in the
care.
business. Lovely to talk to you.
Great analysis this morning. Thank you.
Yeah.